2 in the morning. A woman sits in the blue light of her phone and types 4 words into a search bar. Am I the narcissist? She reads them back, deletes them, types them again. Here is the flat, uncomfortable truth this whole thing turns on. The fact that she can ask that question with that much dread in her chest is the very reason she isn't what she fears. People who actually cause genuine damage do not lie awake at night auditing their own behavior. They sleep fine. The empathetic one, the one who replays every argument looking for the exact moment they became the villain, that's who ends up at the search bar at 2 a.m. This asymmetry is not an accident. It is the point. Take a capable, conscientious person, someone sharp enough to win over rooms full of skeptics. In a toxic relationship, those exact qualities are targeted and turned against them. Her directness gets relabeled as aggression. Her success gets called ego-driven. When she gets hurt and says so, her hurt is named a manipulation tactic. Every trait that made her good at her life is quietly reclassified as a symptom. He never had to call her a narcissist outright. He just had to define what the monster looks like, hand her a flashlight, and let her search her own mind for the evidence. And she cooperates, the way responsible people do. She makes lists. She rereads texts hunting for cruelty. When she asks her friends if she's changed and they say no, she decides they are just being kind rather than honest. By the time you are searching, you'll discount any evidence that clears you. You've been told that a monster who doubts they're a monster is exactly what a clever monster looks like. Philosophers who study this call it epistemic coercion. It is a systematic training program designed to teach a person to distrust their own memory, perception, and read on reality. This tool only bites people who hold still to be examined. It works because you take responsibility when you're wrong. A person with no conscience is immune to a technique that runs entirely on conscience. The arsenal has specific tools. There is the fire hose, hours of words designed to wear you down until you agree just to make the noise stop. There is the moving goalpost, where the standard redraws itself the instant your foot lands. This diagram shows the setup. You are needled for months, these small pressure markers, until you finally snap. That single spike, your one raised voice, is then isolated in a box and presented as the proof of your character. To avoid that spike, you develop this loop of self-correction. You start pre-apologizing. You draft a sentence 6 times before saying it out loud. Self-reflection, which is supposed to be a gift, becomes a cage. The manipulator authors the invisible pressure, then uses your visible response to that pressure to condemn you. We can tell the difference by looking at what happens after harm is caused. A self-questioning person feels remorse, a pain aimed outward at the other person's experience.
A narcissist feels shame, a pain aimed inward at their own image and the fact that they look bad. We can also look at the spread of the behavior. A victim's difficult behavior is reactive and situational. It stays inside this one relationship circle. Narcissistic patterns are pervasive, showing up at work, with family, and with strangers. If the only place you ever feel like a monster is inside one particular relationship, you don't have a personality disorder. You have a toxic address. There is a name for the structural opposite of narcissism, echoism. Echoists shrink. They deflect praise. They apologize for taking up space. Their defining feature is a deep fear of being narcissistic. They are terrified of being too much, too demanding, or too selfish. The empathy that makes you a good partner is the same empathy that makes you a target. The manipulator doesn't hunt for the weak. They hunt for the responsible. When lie there terrified that you're the selfish one, that terror is not a red flag. It is the signature of the person on the far end of the spectrum from the one you're afraid of being. Why does this outlive the relationship? Even years later, survivors find themselves replaying routine meetings, convinced they were condescending, and apologizing to colleagues who didn't even notice the moment. Conditioning doesn't need the original source to keep running. The voice that said your read on reality was unreliable gets internalized so thoroughly it mimics your own internal monologue. You are answering to a judge who left the building years ago. It feels like conscience. It feels like being a careful, decent person. But careful humility does not leave you apologizing to people who are confused about what you're even atoning for. That isn't a conscience, it's a scar. You aren't reflecting, you're replaying a recording someone else made of you, on a loop, in a room they abandoned. The exit is not more searching. Most people try to think their way to certainty through harder journaling and deeper analysis. But turning inward only tightens the loop, because the loop is made of turning inward. You cannot use the broken instrument to fix the instrument. The way out points the other direction, outward. It looks like reality testing against the world and listening to your body, the flinch, the indignation you were trained to override, as valid data. Recovery is behavioral. Form opinions on tiny things, which route home, what to have for dinner. Rebuild the muscle of having a preference. Notice when the pre-apology starts forming, and let the sentence go out without the armor. The guilt you feel when you stop questioning yourself is not evidence that you were the villain. It is the last move of the conditioning as it loses its grip. The fact that you needed to be sure you weren't hurting anyone is the proof, quietly signed, that you were the one who was harmed.